Hi, and welcome to the Phins podcast, the podcast that gets you closer to the game than the sheds. I'm Mitch, and if you bleed red, white and gold, you're in the right place. Every week, right off the back of the game day, we're breaking down everything Dolphins, what clicked, what didn't, and everything in between. No fluff, no filter, just real talk about our boys from Ready. So whether you caught the game live, watched it back, or you're relying on us to tell you what happened, strap in, because we're fanatics here. This is Phins Up. Let's get into it. Well, Phins fans, let's go. 7 wins on the trot, 36-22 over the West Tigers. And I tell you what, it wasn't easy. Some of the boys obviously out for State of Origin. We had Fuiaki, obviously didn't play too much Origin, so backing up, came out and had a somewhat good performance. Tell you what, we were up against it today. Today we had to go down to Campbelltown after playing at home last week, Friday night. Fairly decent, lengthy turnaround. We get a good amount of time to have a rest. We come off the back of thumping the Roosters. I was at that game live, and in all honesty, that first half of the last week's game was quite rough. It was very close. It was the Roosters, I thought, were going to give us a good run, considering, it was a very similar outcome. We both had several players out due to the Origin camp. And this week, honestly, I thought, okay, Wests just came off a decent performance. A lot of media around the Wests talking about, is the coach there at the West, Benji Marshall, is he doing a good job, or, are the boys letting him down? And, there was talk around Jerome Luai. Yep, he put his hand up last week and took one for the team, really put on a good performance. And so, you know what? I thought this week, West Tigers, Dolphins, at Tigers home, it was going to be quite a close game, being that we still had Origin stars out. The first half, actually the whole game, was actually quite hard to watch. Now, this game was not televised free-to-air, so it was only on KO or Fox Sports, however you watched it. Hopefully you did watch the game. If you didn't, I guess it's good you're here, so you can follow up on what happened during that game. If you've watched the highlights, you probably won't understand too much of what went on, because, by gosh, it was a very one-sided refereed game. And I don't want to come straight out with the whole referee thing, but I tell you what, considering the boys had it up against them, I'm just going to pull up the stats. There was 2 penalties for the Tigers, so they gave away 2 penalties. They gave away 1 ruck infringement and 1 10-meter infringement. So the Dolphins only had 2 6-agains and 2 penalties. Against the Dolphins, it was 4 penalties conceded, 3 ruck infringements, and 4 inside 10 metres. Now, I tell you what, there's no one more disappointed than that, that penalty count than the crowd at the game. The crowd at that game were more disappointed that there wasn't more calls. And I tell you what, 11, potential set restarts or infringements against 4. Like, what is going on? That is just ridiculous. And I'll tell you what else I was quite annoyed at. Like, and not taking away the performance from Dolphins, because they actually played extremely well considering this particular stat line. The other thing that annoyed me was the commentary. If you watched the game, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. The commentary from Fox League was just, it was a disgrace. It was one-sided, just all Tigers. The first half, the Dolphins go in 12-10. So they're up. And it's a pretty lackluster first half. It's fairly, I would say it's fairly even. in terms of possession and counts. It was fairly close in that first half. However, when the Tigers did get possession, they were majority of the time, for at least every so often, given a set restart to get down our end. Now the problem with that was that every time they scored a try, it was after they had been gifted the field position downfield. So I'm going to go through a bit of the play-by-play in just a minute, but just starting this off with 11-4 is a ridiculous penalty count, and in the first half, especially, the Fox League commentary was disgusting. You had the Fox League commentators sitting there saying that the Tigers are well on top. Jerome Luai is in control. This is all you could hear in the first half, was that the Dolphins were struggling. The Dolphins were struggling to get out of their own end. They were rattled. Dolphins ran a 70-metre set on one occasion, and the commentator sits there and goes, "Oh, the Dolphins are rattled." They've just made it upfield 70 metres off Nafahu making a 20-metre break through the middle. Like, what? Are you watching the same game that I'm watching? And then they go into the sheds, 12-10, and they say Tigers are well on top. I was like, if they're well on top, why aren't they winning? So, that's what kind of got me going for this game. But now, in terms of the other stat lines, it'll tell you possession was 50-50, and that's purely because the Tigers couldn't hold the ball. They had 13 errors. Let's see, what's some other... In terms of time in possession, we held the ball better. It was 80% to 80% completion rate, so you would see that as both teams were fairly average. They completed highly, but in terms of, they both didn't complete all their sets. 33 out of 41 versus 32 out of 40. It's not too bad. Dolphins ran for further, more post-contact meters, line breaks 6-3 in favour of the Dolphins. Fairly similar average play the ball speed. They had more kicks, more kicking meters. Tackles made, there were a few more for the Tigers. Same amount of missed tackles. We had more ineffective tackles, 14 to their 10. We had 10 errors to their 13, so not too bad. But then obviously, that penalty and ruck infringement count, 2-4, 1-3, 1-4. So that's where the Tigers mainly get their points from in this particular game. They have come through and, in the 7th minute, Sione Fainu from the Tigers scores. Then Herbie scores at 17th minute. Then Toya scores in the 30th minute. And then Connolly at the 35. Tavita Nafahu at 42 minutes. Cody Nikarima throws an awesome pass, face ball across their winger. And look, I don't know majority of the players' names. In terms of the Dolphins, I pretty much know all of those guys, but the other teams I'm not really interested in watching. We're here for Phins Up. This is the Phins Up show right here. So, but yes, Tavita Nafahu, 2 minutes after halftime, we barrel downfield. It's actually right after halftime, and this is after hearing the Fox League commentary make their stupid remarks about Luai being in control. Luai gets the ball on the 5th and doesn't even put in a kick. He just passes the ball out to his front row, and his front row takes it up forward, and they just have to hand over the ball. So, don't know what they're doing there, but yeah, seems like Jerome Luai was in control. First set after halftime, and you can't even get to your kick. Good job. So we barrel downfield, and yeah, face ball from Cody Nikarima straight across to Nafahu in the left wing, and easy try. Does some acrobatics, gets it down in the corner. Then it's fairly, back and forward arm wrestle. This is where a lot of the 6 agains and restarts come from for the Tigers. A lot of help coming by the way of the officiating in this game towards the Tigers, but they just couldn't ice it. They struggled, and then we have Trey Fuller go over in the 67th minute, great try, and then Trey Fuller again busts open through the middle of the field. I think it was Oren Keeley supporting on his left, passes the ball, and Buller, the West Tigers fullback, coming into cover, and Oren Keeley passes the ball out to Cody Nikorima for his try in the 72nd minute. Then we have a try from the Tigers on the 76th minute, and Jermaine Asako then crossing in the 78th after Bostock goes down, leaps for a ball. As he's falling onto the ground, basically Gridiron throws it over the top into the corner where Jermaine Asako is, and Asako doesn't miss that close and puts it over. In terms of conversions, 6 for 6, Asako doesn't miss these days. It pretty much helped that he was kicking mostly from the left-hand side. Herbie on the left, Connolly on the left, Nafahu on the left, Nikorima was on the left, and his own try in the right-hand corner, he did pretty well to get that. And we've got a good kicker there. Unfortunately, he's leaving for the Storm. Don't know who our kicker will be. Maybe Katoa. And that's probably the next point to get into. Katoa was out this game. So we had Brad Schneider, and look, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of him. Sometimes some of the decisions he makes with his passes just, don't understand. Growing up playing in the halves myself, sometimes he kind of, a few times throughout this game, he would catch the ball and pass it, but I guess he was just trusting his player was there. So, he's somewhat of an experienced player, but at the same time, Katoa does it because he knows Nikorima's there pretty much all the time, but you could just see he was a bit disjointed at times throughout this game. In terms of our halves, in terms of Katoa being out this week, I think we did pretty well. And all things considered, we also were missing, Hammer, Flegler, Cobbo, bunch of other guys that were out due to Origin. And the performance the boys put in, 36-22, with 7 wins on. We have several players out, and a Tigers at home, and boy, I tell you, the crowd were not happy anytime the Dolphins did anything remotely close to a 6 again or anything. They were getting into the ref, telling him to get them on side and all sorts of things. It was actually quite funny to sit there and listen to. They're having a mental breakdown on the sidelines there, but I guess that's mostly Sydney teams for you. And boy, I tell you what, after State of Origin on Wednesday night just gone, the boys that showed up and played, and I can't even, Max Plath, forgot that he didn't even back up either. So no Plath today either. And boy, these guys representing Dolphins in Queensland, they were something else that Wednesday night. I'm so proud of our boys that went out there on Wednesday night, and Cobbo coming from the Broncos. And I've been discussing this with a few people because probably like most people maybe here that go for the Dolphins, they probably went for Broncos or another Queensland team beforehand. But Cobbo at the Broncos in 2023, especially the game, it was at the Gabba, he was phenomenal. And at that point, I believe it was still Kevy Walters. And I think Kevy, this was also, Cobbo came out and said, he doesn't understand how Kevy coaches think he's a great bloke, not a great coach, blah, blah, blah. That is what it is. Cobbo is like 24 years old, and he's still a boy. Like, and let's be honest, he's still young. He's still going through life, learning what it's like, getting some maturity about him. But this year, under our coach, Christian Wolf, man, Cobbo has been phenomenal. He had probably the first 3 or 4 games where he was a bit sketchy, couldn't catch a ball. He was, struggling to really get a grip of anything. And then all of a sudden he just explodes. So, but yeah, in terms of where the Dolphins went right today, They played extremely intense. I love seeing Frank Molo run off the back fence. There was a point there where Kafusi just he took a run, and it was in the final maybe 5 minutes, and he could see some lazy, tired defenders from the Tigers, and he made a good 10, 15 meters, but it was a perfect run to set up Osako scoring in that next set. But what it was the maturity of one of your leaders in the squad, and Kafusi making that run. You could see that what he was trying to do was just, instead of taking a 5 meter run where they have to kick from their own half, he made a good 10, 15 meter burst and got us into a good position where we were kicking just into their half, and it gave a good chance for Bostock to jump. And it was one of those runs that was, all right, I know exactly what we need to do to ice this game. Guys, get behind me. This is what we're going to do. So, the rest of the forward pack, Fine Fuiaki was lucky not to get over. It looked like he almost got his head taken off there at one point. What else did we have throughout the game? There was controversial decision for Jack Bostock running through in the first half. Jerome Luai was running towards the right and then running towards the left and ran in front of Bostock. Bostock ran into him, pushed him over, and Bostock was penalised. It wasn't called a escort penalty against Luai, even though clearly on the screen you could see that that's what it was. It was actually a penalty against Bostock. And then, 30 minutes later in the second half, Tigers do the same thing, and it was basically called a try for the Tigers. And that was I believe the 53rd minute with Sione Fainu going over. And yeah, it was just, one of those situations where the guys turned around and they were running back towards the ball, and Tigers player ran straight into the back of them, and there was no call. So this is my issue with the game where it is right now. If you're going to make a call against the other team, that is a penalty to Bostock for running into the back of a player that was clearly escorting you. If the other team does it to us, it should also be a penalty. So this is where the refereeing these days needs to be. It's not necessarily it's a black and white, because some things there is a bit of discretion and whatnot. However, you can't call one decision for one team and then the same thing happen and not call it. There was a dropped ball from the young winger from the Tigers. I can't remember his name, but it was a clear drop ball, knock on, and it was just play on. And I believe the next set, the Tigers go down the field and score a try. Like they knocked the ball on maybe their 10 or 20 meter line in the second half, late in the second half. They dropped the ball. The winger stopped and, waiting for the ref to call his whistle. Ref didn't. He basically gave himself up and then just kept going. And yeah, I believe they may have got a 6 again that set. I'm going to check the play-by-play. But yeah, there was essentially I think it's marked as an error. But yeah, they make it downfield and they score. Yeah. But in terms of, we were well ahead at that stage. Like, it wasn't, alarm bells weren't ringing. It was a very one-sided officiated game. The commentary was one-sided. I also just something on X that I saw as well was the NRL page was even in the first half there were 4 tries scored. They only put up the 2 Tigers tries as the highlights of that first half. And I'm sitting there going, Sione Fainu at 7th minute, Herbie in the 17th, Toya on the 30th, and Lemuelu on the 35th. But yet they only put up the 2 Tigers tries. So I was a bit frustrated and confused there. Why would you only show the tries from the Tigers? And is this just a home thing? Like, I'm not sure if when the Dolphins play at home, if the other team scores, if they get their highlights put up either. Like, I don't know. I hope this isn't NRL doesn't want the Dolphins to succeed because, we're 3 seasons in and, we're actually doing pretty well. After this game, we've temporarily moved into third, awaiting the other results from the other teams, but we've essentially cemented ourselves in the top 4 as of round 16. After this week, there will be 10 more rounds to go until the final one. And next week, boy, is it a game. We're up against the Warriors and I'll be there and I'm expecting a massive crowd for that one. Like, not Broncos massive, but, a good, 25, 30,000 people in there because, we know the Warriors fans love to show up. They took over Suncorp for that, the Broncos-Warriors game, if you watch that one, for the Magic Round. And yeah, I'm expecting a good full stadium next Saturday. So yeah, if you're not going to that, if you haven't got tickets yet and you want to get along, just check it out. Go on to Dolphins page and get some tickets and yeah, it's going to be cracking. But it looks like we're in a good position this far into the season. We hopefully stay injury-free. Cody Nikorima is by far, like, Christian Wolf, you need to sign him. Like Dolphins NRL, you need to sign him. He can't go uncontracted for the next few weeks, especially while his brother's over in Super League talking like, oh, Cody should just come over here and play, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. Cody is a fantastic player. He was great when he had someone that leads the team as a 7, and that's exactly what Katoa is doing. That's exactly what I saw with him back in the Broncos days in like 2015-16. Cody Nikorima, when he's playing well and he's playing under a 7 that is controlling and leading the team, he is free to flow and be creative. And he's looking like one of the best 6s this year. I'd probably put him and Trindle. They're probably the 2 that I've seen this year that have been. Trindle's not as creative, I would say, as Cody, but I would say Trindle's eyes up play has been fairly good this year. And I don't care about the Sharks, but I just know from watching some of the games that the Sharks have played, Trindle has been going pretty well. So I would have Cody up there as one of the best 6s this year. If Munster was playing like Munster does in the State of Origin, you would have Munster as the best 6 this year. But yeah, Cody Nikorima, he's on another level this year. And yeah, when Katoa is back and fit and healthy, those 2 are scary combinations, especially that Roosters game where they flogged them and they were just clicking together. That little chip kick over the top was, yeah, some great 6-7 combination, going on there. So, yeah, but that'll probably wrap it up for this week. We'll come back with the Warriors game. And, yeah, I guess hopefully, if the Phins can get it done again. But, yeah, we're going on to 8 in a row if we can get it done against the Warriors. And, yeah, we should have all of our Origin stars back, full squad, fit, healthy, pending Katoa's injury. But yeah, it's going to be a cracking game. Hopefully I'll see you there, and Fins up. And that's a wrap on another episode of Fins Up. If you enjoyed the breakdown, do us a favour and hit subscribe. Drop us a review and share it with a fellow Dolphins fan. It genuinely helps more than you'd think. Do you have a hot take? Do you think we got it wrong? Discuss with us on our social media page at Fins Up Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be back after the next game with a full breakdown, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Until then, stay loud, stay proud, and keep those fins up.